بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه وقدره ومقداره العظيم الحمد لله. So we're looking today at the 16 juz. So every day in Ramadan we're going through one particular spara, one particular section of the Quran. So we've been doing this, the purpose of this is for us to gain like an overall general understanding into the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really the most important priority within our lives, or it should be. Now what we found since coming back, I've been abroad for a number of years, sitting with people where every single person knows the book of Allah. They all know it. They've either memorized it or they know the meanings of it inside out. Yeah, so when you're living with people, that's like the electrician comes to your house, to fix your pipes, and he starts telling you meanings of Tafsir, and he starts telling you about different ahadith, and this ayah means that, this ayah means that. Just your normal people there. Obviously, coming back here now, what we have now is really a massive crisis, which is a lack of understanding of the Quran. The great Sayyidina Umar, he said that the one who looks for guidance from other than the Quran, the Muslim who looks for guidance from elsewhere apart from the Quran, Allah will break his back. And that's what we see now. Look at the ummah out there. It's broken, isn't it? Like myself now, I'm 39 years, I'm coming up to 40 years old. Every single day of my life, there's been Muslim bloodshed. Muslims have been killed. There's not a single day of my life except that at least one Muslim, if not hundreds, even thousands of Muslims are being killed every day. Every single day of my life. And the reason is due to an abandonment of the Quran. So the purpose of this, inshallah, is tajdeed, what they call revival, trying to bring something back to life. We've killed the understanding of the Quran in our hearts. The Quran lives, it's the word of Allah, but it doesn't live in our lives. It doesn't live in our hearts. It doesn't live in our souls. So the purpose is to bring it back. So you've got to start somewhere. So really the starting is at least let's get a general understanding what is the Quran. Before we can start looking really, like I've mentioned, every single word of the Quran, mashallah, every single dot of the Quran, even the nook in the dot, like they say the ba in Bismillah, in the dot under the ba, that's got meanings, like amazing meanings. Some of them, one of them he said, Shaykh Muhammad al-Yaqubi, one of the scholars from Syria, he said that all of the Quran is contained in the dot under the ba of the Bismillah. So that's what some of them say. There's deep mystical meanings in the Quran. The Quran is vast. So for us, what we're trying to gain here is just at least let's get a basic understanding. Okay, this juz, okay, this is what he talks about. These are the main points. These are the main stories. These are the main ideas. If we can understand that, inshallah, we ask Allah, He opens up for us the Quran. And then therefore the Quran, then all of the other meanings of the Quran come in. Inshallah ta'ala, because this is just we hope it's the beginning. It's the beginning of a journey towards understanding the Quran on a deeper level. So really it's a general, it is like an ilmi dars, it's like a lesson to learn and to gain knowledge rather than like a general reminder. Sometimes if you go to Jummah and you hear a bayan or a khutbah, or like people like, for example, if you're going to speak just before Taraweeh or those kind of, that you got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's like a reminder. This is more like a dars. We're trying to learn, inshallah, and impart knowledge. So if you look, we're on the 16 juz. And the 16 juz, it begins in the middle of a surah, which is Surah Al-Kafi. Surah Al-Kafi is one of the most important surahs in the Quran. It's a surah that we read every Friday. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who reads Surah Al-Kafi every Friday, he receives a nur, a light that extends from that to the next Friday. So it goes from one Friday to the next. It's a himayah, it's a protection from one Friday to the next. So Surah Al-Kafi is a really important surah. It's a surah for us that's important. It's a surah of the Dajjal. It's a surah that protects us from the Dajjal. Like we know that if you recite the first 10 verses, or the last 10, or the whole surah, it protects you. There's different riwayat out there. But the point is to be reading it every day. If you're reading it every week, also every Friday has blessings. So Surah Al-Kahf. So Surah Al-Kahf, it's got 4 main stories in. And these stories, they teach you how to deal with tests in life. Every single person, no matter who they are, is going to have tests and trials in life. Now, The tests and trials that we have are going to depend on different things. So the first type of people are people who are tried and tested because of religion. They want to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they live in a place where they can't do that. People don't allow them. Yeah. Here talking about young men. Yeah, young men are teenagers, that kind of young men, they want to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they go out to a place just to get away from everything. And they end up going to a cave and worshipping Allah in that cave. Yeah, and miraculous things that then happen to them. But the purpose of these people is they're people who believe in Tawheed. They believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they want to worship Allah. Yeah, they want to gain closeness to Allah. So what do they understand? They understand to do that, they have to change their environment. If you got to go somewhere else. Yeah, this is the beginning of like the struggle. There's very few exceptions, very few people who have changed without changing their environment. Very few. There are some people, mashallah, they can stay where they are and still become transformed. That's rare. The vast majority, we have to make changes. Yeah, otherwise it becomes difficult. I remember once one of our teachers, he was talking, someone asked him about why do you do a talk about, like issues between men and women and, all these like things that happen and stuff like that. And he said, listen, he goes, I'm happy because I can come and do a talk and people will be there. Yeah, he's right. I've got to stop that relationship, this and the other. He goes, as soon as they're gone from that lecture, hour, 2 hours later, they're back on WhatsApp, Facebook. And within a couple of hours, they're back to you again. They're back with that illicit relationship again. This is the nature of the human being. So that's why when the environment doesn't change, or someone comes and does a talk about drug addiction or alcohol, and say, I've got to stop doing this. And then you go back the next day, you're with your boys again, they say, come on. Step by step, you go back to it. This is the way the world is. If you really want to commit to change, it takes a change of environment, which is not easy. It's not easy. The reason it's not easy because it's bravery. You've got to be brave to do that. You've got to be brave. It takes courage. Anyone who says that it's easy, they either haven't done it or they're just lying. It's not at all. It takes bravery and courage. And the best environments for us are these places now, these sanctuaries, the masajid. Yeah, and that's why when we can turn our masjid into our home. Every single home, you should have a space in your house, like a little corner that you only use that for worship. Yeah, you have a little like the mihrab, like we have here, like the mihrab. You have that little corner and you only use that for worship. And that becomes your sanctuary. So even your whole house, even the rest of the house, there's things going on, at least have a little corner in the house where there's no distraction. And then make your dhikr there. And if you constantly praying and making dhikr there, then the angels will gather within that place. You will feel sakeen and happiness within that place. Yeah, so these are from among some of the things that we need to do. To change. That's the first one. The second story tells us about the trial of wealth. Massive trial for us now is money. Yeah, why is it that people go astray? Why is it? Money is one of them. The other one is power. Yeah, those two. And then there's like for men, women. Women lead men astray. Yeah, this is very, very common. Like our teacher, Habib Muhammad al-Aidurus, is an expert in da'wah. That's he's like the head of the da'wah department there, Dar Mustafa. He said, he goes, for anybody who's involved in da'wah, he goes, there's 3 reasons why you're going to fall. Women, wealth, and power. Those 3. Because money comes in very, very destructive. Wealth is this is why even when talking about tests and trials, if I said to you, what's a test? You'd be like, like me losing my child is a test. Yeah, or me, like someone dies or I have an accident or I can't walk. Yeah, those are all tests, don't get me wrong, massive tests. We ask Allah for safety and security. We don't wish that for ourselves or anybody. We ask for afiyah. But that's not the real test. The real test when things are going well. The real test is when someone turns up and gives you £1 million. That's a much bigger test. When you lose your son or you lose your daughter, where are you going to go? You're to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's actually going to bring you closer to him. Ya Allah, Ya Rabb. That's what's going to happen. Like subhanAllah, one of our teachers is scared. He was talking about Bosnia and what happened in Bosnia, which was just, like those people who are aware of that time. It's a very dark time of history. He said, why did Bosnia happen? He said, because there were people in that community that weren't praying. They weren't praying the salah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent something to them that made sure that they prayed the salah, which was the massacre of people. Yeah, killing and pillage and rape and like the worst possible things we can imagine that took place to those people. But it brought them back. It brought them back to Islam. Yeah, so oftentimes tribulations, that's what we think is a test is the best thing that could happen to us. Yeah, because the will of Allah is perfect. The will of Allah is absolutely perfect. Now the other trial, that's where we fall, is when things are going well. Yeah, when money comes in.
when things are actually going comfortably, that's when we forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why there's people like, there's people, you could go 20, there's people that have gone 20, 30 years of their life, 40 years, they've never even had a moment with Allah. Not even once. That they haven't even spoken to Allah once. Their heart's never been 20, 30 years. Yeah. That they might even pray 5 times a day. They might even do all this, just ritual, empty ritual. Yeah, 20, 30 years, they haven't done that once. Why? Because they're comfortable with life. Generally, people who have got a nice house, got a nice car, those are the ones who are down and out. They're, ya Allah, ya, they're those kinds of people. Yeah. And we're always closest to Allah when we're broken. Like they say that the heart has to be smashed for the nur to come in. Yeah, the heart has to be broken for the nur to come in. So it's not always a negative thing. So these people, they're talking about these people, the people of the garden. They have this massive garden. Basically, in our context, they have massive wealth, and they're stingy with that wealth. And you know what they want to do? Every year, they do like a harvest. You know, they collect all this fruit, and then they go and sell it, and that's their money, basically. One year, they want to do it quietly, so the poor people don't find out. Because what used to happen, every year they go and they gather the fruit, and these guys come give us a bit, and they have to give it to them. Now they don't want to do that. So they say, we'll go out quietly when early in the morning when no one's around, and we'll take it. Thinking that they're clever. What happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely destroys their garden. They get there and they're like, we've come to the wrong place. This isn't our garden. They're like, where are we? And then they say, no, we're over here. And then they recognize, and you know what? We were wrong in what we did. Yeah, but look at that for that trial for them. Yeah, that trial to just lose their wealth, and then they wake up. When they've got the wealth, it's easy to just ignore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what we basically do in our lives. You know what's scary? Like the word deen. I don't know if people here, like, what does deen mean? When we say what does deen mean, we normally say it means religion, don't we? A deen means religion, like, you know, my deen is like Islam. That's true, but that's not what deen actually means. Deen, if you look at linguistically, what does deen mean? Very important to understand. Deen means like, not even your way. Some people interpret it as way of, it's not even your way of life. Deen means the way you behave. That's your deen. So like, how do we behave? We behaving like, for example, we work 9 till 5. Yeah. We, you know, go to the gym in the evenings. Yeah. We have our set routine. That routine is not a Muslim routine. Muslims don't live like that. You go to Fez now, go to Yemen now, go to these places. They don't live like that. They wake up, they work from Fajr till Dhuhr. Yeah. Between Maghrib and Isha, they're at the masjid. Full stop. Yeah, that's the way they live. So now really, what does that mean? It means our deen is we're actually living like non-Muslims. Like we can say, oh, my deen is Islam. Okay, fine, mashallah, that's true. And that's going to get us out of jail ultimately. It doesn't mean we won't be eternally, we'll enter Jannah eventually. But there's going to be a lot of punishment before that, because we've chosen to adopt a different lifestyle. So it's something that takes reflection. Deen is not just religion, it's the way you behave. Yeah, and the way we're behaving is ajib, is strange. Yeah, so it goes back to this point again. These people, their deen was something else. Yeah, their behavioral patterns was something completely different. So that's the second. Then the third one, the third story is the story of Khidr and Musa alayhi salam. This is a very important story for us to understand, especially for when we're talking to non-Muslims, when you're giving da'wah to non-Muslims, which again, you know, like you look at Sheikh Ramadan, who's Sheikh Ramadan al-Bouti, the greatest scholar of the last 100 years. Yeah, the great Syrian Imam. Yeah, generally regarded as the greatest scholar of the 20th century by I'll say probably everybody really, but certainly by every scholar I've come across. He's the greatest scholar of the last 20th century. You know, just immense. So what does he say? He says that it's impermissible. These are his words. He says it's haram to live in the lands of the disbelievers. It's haram unless you're giving da'wah. That's because that's the only way it's justified. Because otherwise, just leave. And there's places you can go to. So therefore, our primary concern, yeah. Now it's interesting is that we came here, mashallah, and if you look at what our parents' generation have done, they've done like 100 times what we've done. We've done nothing. Look how many masajid they've built. You know, the uncle's generation, like the young guys all have to criticize, oh, they don't know that. They've built all of this. Yeah, they've done everything. And even now, with all our resources and all our know-how, all our education, what are we doing? Where are these? Where's the next mosque? Or okay, we don't need mosque now. Where's the next education? It's not there, is it? It's not there. So our job now, just like they established that, what's our job? Our job is to establish centers of da'wah. Yeah, centers that can reach out, community hubs that can reach out to human beings. Yeah. Muslim and non-Muslim alike. Yeah, and really that's what we should have done in the first place. But our parents' generation, they didn't have that nous and that know-how to know that. That the first thing we should have set to is places inviting non-Muslims to Islam before masajid. That's the reality from a fiqh point of view. That's the only thing that justified us staying here. And now what happens now is that obviously that hasn't taken place, but what they've done is like still a million times greater than what we did. Yeah, as I speaking to the younger generation, we've done absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing with formal education, formal resources. We've got everything. Where are the mosques that have been? With these 1,500, 2,000 mosques in the UK, all of them have been built by that generation. We haven't built anything at all, nothing whatsoever. So now, our focus should be that, yeah, to be. So now, if you look at this story tells you about the problem of evil. So people can say, why does evil exist in the world? Why do kids get cancer? Yeah, why is it that women get abused, women get beaten up, attacked? Why did these horrible things happen? So this story gives you the answer to that. And what it's saying, in essence, to summarize it in surely, is basically saying that you really don't know a lot. That's the bottom line. We don't understand because we don't know that much. Yeah, we actually think we're not actually very intelligent. Yeah, the human being, we have a very, very small mind. We can only see 0.1%. Yeah, of this. Like they talk now, it's interesting scientific, and like they talk about black matter. So they say the vast majority of the universe, 99.99% of the universe is dark matter, isn't it? And then what we can see is at 0.001%. That's what we can see. But 99.99% of you can't even see. That's an analogy to understand. What we can see and what's going on is very little. So this story illustrates that. Because this individual, Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam, for example, he kills a young child. I said, how can you kill a young child? Like, what are you doing? That's wrong. And he's just like, listen, because he tells him what the story says, he's not going to be able to understand what I'm doing. Don't ask me. But he has to ask Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam his nature. But then he tells him, the reason I killed that child was going to go on and destroy. He was going to go and destroy his parents. He was going to go on to cause mischief in the earth. Yeah, so can you see he's seeing things from a different perspective? So sometimes we'll see things, we don't understand them. And that's what's being addressed within this story. And then the fourth story is the story of Dhul Qarnayn. Dhul Qarnayn is somebody who was given power over the entire earth. They say there's only 3 people in human history who were given complete power over the earth. One is Dhul Qarnayn, the other one is the Mahdi, and the third one is Sayyidina Isa. Yeah, so the second 3rd are still to come. Yeah, which is the Mahdi and then Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. We're going to have complete power over the whole earth. So the first one is this one, is Dhul Qarnayn, yeah? So he's a person of power, yeah? He's a person who has authority in the earth, yeah? And through this authority, again, it's a test. What's he going to do now? And power is the biggest test, even bigger than money. Power is a big test, yeah? Like right now, one of the things that we all love to do this, don't we? Like I'm as guilty as anyone else. I'm not certainly no saint. Is we love to complain about our leaders, the Muslim leaders. Oh, they do this and they do that. Like the amount of uncles that I've heard. Sorry to the uncles. My uncles that I've heard say, all this kind of stuff. Like in this leaders, bad leaders. Fair enough. I'm not disagreeing. To be honest with you. Like I don't know. Like somebody was telling me this. Like Gambia, the Gambian leader, mashallah, I find that the only leader in the world at the moment was like upright. But all these leaders, they are what they are. And, enough people talk about them without us having to repeat what they say. But the point is that all of these leaders, it's easy for us to say, but what if we are their power? What would we do? Suddenly you've got billions of pounds at your disposal. Or you're going to just, I'll take out 0.01% for my family. I mean, come on, I'm still benefiting the people. What's the big deal? Yeah. Or like you've got power now, then suddenly, actually, if I do this, these big business guys are going to kill me. They're not going to let me do it. Okay, I'll just compromise. I'll compromise on this. Let's let a few casinos in, let a bit of alcohol being sold, this time. They sort of justify. You don't know what you're going to be like. You've got power, you're going to lose the plot. So it's easy to now criticize others and say, oh, you do this, you do that. But when you look at Dhul Qarnayn, mashallah, given control over the entire earth, it remains just and fair. Subhanallah. That's not normal, is it? So he's able to pass the test. So these are the 4 stories of the 4 tests of the human being. Number 1 is, are you going to worship your Lord? Are you going to have the courage, the bravery to get out of that environment and to become a person that can completely dedicate, completely submit themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? 99.9% of us, we never will. You know why? Because we're like sleepwalking through life. like this. We somnambulance people. We sleepwalking through life. No, like a real tawbah. A real tawbah is we're not doing it because it takes something that we just can't do it. That's the bottom line. Yeah, how many people, like I was saying to you, how many now people, students of knowledge within the kind of circles that I roll in, how many of them are willing to leave this country and really dedicate themselves 100% to knowledge? Very, very few. Now, and anyone can. There's no obstacle to anybody doing it. Anybody who can speak English, mashallah, you can go to anywhere in the world and get a job and make plenty of money, support yourself and gain knowledge. It's not hard. You can change your environment overnight. For us, like I met people who they can't do it. There's people you see some of the fuqara, they love to do it, but they can't. They say, I just can't do it. I don't have any money. Us guys, that's not an excuse. So number one is the test of, are you going to change your environment to worship Allah? Yeah. Number two, the test of wealth. How are you going to use that wealth? All of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us wealth. And we talk about it every day after Taraweeh, don't we? The idea of just giving it up. These are just veils that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed before us. Just veils that we can easily remove those veils just through sadaqah. Yeah, just through sadaqah we can remove those veils and become people that are beloved to Allah. Yeah. And then the third test of understanding when things go wrong, why did Allah do this to me? All that chatter that goes on. They're removing that. And then the fourth one is when you have power, and we all have power and authority. If you're the head of a household, you've got power and authority over your wife, over your children. Yeah, that's why they say the Pharaoh, everyone talks about Pharaoh, these great times. What about the Pharaoh of the house? We become tyrants within our own. How do we treat our women? How do we treat our children? Or we people who think that I've got control and I've got power, and I'm going to do this. Yeah. So these are all aspects, inshallah, that we need to try to understand. So this is Surah Al-Kafi. Then after that, it goes on to the next surah, Surah Al-Maryam. Surah Al-Maryam is again another quite a central surah actually, because it goes to the stories of all of the prophets. Yeah, so it's really important. So I remember when I was studying Tafsir, my Quran teacher in Morocco, he said that you can't say that you know the Quran unless you've studied Surah Maryam, because it brings all of the different prophets in there and explains them all. Really, really. So it's a really, really important surah. It's obviously the title Surah Maryam says a lot. So the main story within there is about Sayyidina Maryam and Sayyidina Isa. That's like the central story. But then there's many others around that as well. Yeah. So he teaches us if you look at Maryam alayhi salam as an example for us, mashallah, we obviously learn a lot from her. But then successively after that, there comes prophet after prophet that he also teaches us about. So I'm just going to mention one from amongst them, which is Sayyidina Ibrahim. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, this surah, it teaches us how to call people to Islam through his example. Yeah. So one thing that we see deep wisdom in the way he speaks. He's speaking to his uncle. He calls him his father, but he's clearly his uncle. Azhar, because the father of Ibrahim alayhi salam was a muwahhid. He was a believer in one God, and this person is obviously not. So he speaks to him and he explains to him. He tells him about Islam, and he just does it in a beautiful way. He points to the signs in the heavens and the earth. He does he employs various means. That again, I would recommend people to read that surah, analyze, study that surah in more detail. We don't have time to go through the details of da'wah here. I mean, that's like a course in and of itself. Yeah, but it teaches you how to do that. Just to give people a basic idea of da'wah, just so they have an understanding. Really, da'wah, especially the faqir, is what I specialized in when I was out, especially in Taneem, in Hadramaut. They've got a great tradition. That then there's nobody, to be honest, that comes close. There's no one that's been as successful. One of our teachers, Shaykh Yahya wrote us, he said that, I think he said 50% of the Muslim world, 50% of the Muslim world is Muslim because of that. Those scholars from Yemen, just that one valley. They went all over the world. Like you look at India, Bangladesh, Shah Jalal was from there. You look at Malaysia, Indonesia in the forest. Then you look at South Africa, massive in the East Africa, North Africa, West Africa, all over the place. Yeah, so they're saying that up to half of the Muslim world as we know it today became Muslim through their da'wah efforts. So how do they, so they say da'wah, it's interesting the way they define it. They say da'wah is to remove veils. Yeah, is to remove veils that are stopping you from loving Allah. So what are they saying? They're saying that every single person, every single one of us, we were born in a state of love. All of us are born loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's not a single person that was born except that he loved Allah. Because before this world, we were with Allah. and we were in a state of happiness and joy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before this world. Yeah, every single one of us were with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we were ripped from that world and dropped here. Yeah, into this dark, difficult world of anxiety and all the rest of it. Yeah. So every single one of us naturally loves Allah. But what's happened is that we've got things that come in the way that have stopped us. Yeah, things that have stopped us. If those things, so what's our job as da'is, as callers to Allah? Just remove those veils, remove them so people can reconnect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. Yeah. So the example that I always give is I really struck me this. I mean, I wasn't actually physically present at this gathering, but it really struck me that many years ago we had like a storyteller that came. This was like for women and children. She was like a professional story. She used to be a storyteller before Islam. She became Muslim. She's a storyteller. She told the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, and then she also told the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And there were little children present that suddenly started to love the Quran. Before that, they did, because again, look at our madrasa system. Does it teach children to love the Quran? Right, you know, I don't know why. Maybe things have changed now. But I remember when I was a kid, I didn't learn how to love the Quran from going to madrasa. That was the last place I'm going to learn it. Yeah. So what happens now is every single person is born to love the Quran. Every single one of us. So why don't we love the Quran? There's been veils that have been put in the way. This woman, she was just removing those veils, and you can see the joy on the faces of those children. Suddenly, they're reclaiming their love of the Quran, which is their right. And I look now for some as us. Why do we not? Why am I having to teach a basic course about the Quran? Why am I having to teach a more advanced course? Because people don't love the Quran. If they loved it, they'd want to know about it. Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, I love the Prophet. You don't even know when the Prophet was born. You don't even think about his life, and he's claiming ishq, and no, there's proofs of that, which is knowledge, first of all, that you want to learn about it. Yeah. So this is what da'wah is. It's about removing those veils. It's about, so every single person, doesn't matter who they are, they naturally love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They naturally love beauty. They naturally love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his way. Naturally, they love that. Now, why they're not then loving it? Because they can't see it. It's not there for them, is it? We're actually obstacles ourselves. Yeah, we're actually a fitna for disbelievers, because they're seeing us and they're expecting to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they don't see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're seeing something else. Yeah. So as a result of that, we become veiled. So here we see we said Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's teaching us. And inshallah, I mean, go home and have a look through it. Surah Maryam is the 19th chapter of the Quran. Look at the section on Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, and look at the way he approaches this vast topic. Yeah. And then there's other prophets that I mentioned. The story of Maryam alayhi salam itself is an extraordinary story. And Sayyidina Isa coming into the world and declaring his slavehood before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these things. So you have that. And then the last surah in this para, the second half of this para is Surah Taha. So Surah Taha is, mashallah, is a beautiful surah. It's one of the surahs that was revealed before the universe was even created. They mentioned Surah Taha, Surah Yasin was revealed before the universe even emerged. Yeah, really powerful surah. And it's a very rhythmical surah. It sounds beautiful to hear it recited. Yeah, it just, the sound of it is much. Like hear like these great, like these Egyptian Qur'an and some of these great reciters, mashallah. Just to hear the surah is powerful. Yeah, just the way it sounds. Now, that surah for all Muslims, it should have a very special place in our hearts. Again, maybe it doesn't because we don't have knowledge of this, but inshallah, through knowledge, we'll understand. Because this is the surah that led to Sayyidina Umar becoming Muslim, the great Umar. And once Umar became Muslim, mashallah, that was a moment of great victory for the Muslims. Because, before that, how lessons used to take place like quietly. They used to go to a place in the countries like Darul Arqam, and no, Islam was silent. You couldn't even talk about Islam. When Sayyidina Umar became Muslim, straight away, the first thing, Allahu Akbar, they went out, proclaimed it openly. There was no longer any need to fear because of the strength of Sayyidina Umar. Yeah, so it was a big turning point for the Muslims, mashallah. I mean, again, 1,400 years later, we might not understand it, but imagine living in a society where you can't even pray in public. You can't even talk about Islam in public. Yeah, if you do, you're seeing people around you being tortured and killed for saying that they're Muslim. Yeah, that kind of environment. And then suddenly, mashallah, you have a giant that enters it. He was literally a giant. He was 9 foot tall. He was literally a giant who enters into Islam. Yeah, and he enters through this. So they mentioned that there's a couple of versions of the story. Yeah, one of them talks about Sayyidina Umar. It's an interesting one. He said that Umar used to be like a very heavy drinker. Yeah, he was a very heavy drinker, and literally what he's doing is like, you know, one tavern shut, he's going to another place to carry on drinking. It's at midnight. He's going to find a late place to go and carry on drinking. And as he's going, he goes past the Kaaba and he sees and hears the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he said, let's listen to what he's got to say. So he goes and he hides under the qiswa, you know, the covering of the Kaaba, and he hears surahs from the Quran, and affects his heart, and he's changed. Yeah, that's one version. The other version they say is that he goes to he hears that his sisters become Muslim. Yeah, he finds that his sisters become, and he's really angry the fact that his sisters become Muslim, because Sayyidina was a great enemy of Islam before he became Muslim. So he goes and he strikes his sister across the face out of anger for the fact that she's entered Islam. And then when he calms down, she says to him, listen, like, this is the Quran, listen to it. So then he starts to read, and he reads these verses, Surah Al-Kafi. He reads these verses, his heart softens. And then he goes to the house of the Prophet. Before he goes with his sword, before he was going to kill him, he wanted to go and kill the Prophet. Now he enters again. He enters the house, and this time he accepts Islam. And when he accepts Islam, they will say Allahu Akbar at the top of the voice, and they just proclaim the fact that Islam is now here. So that was like the beginning of Islam in public. It's the first time that people could openly say, I'm a Muslim, and talk about Islam. So it's a very, very significant change. Yeah, so we have this. And the Surah Taha, the main story in Surah Taha is about Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. So we learn about his life and his prophecy, how he became a messenger. Yeah, and the trials and the tribulations that he went through. The story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is probably, it's the most repeated story, and it's probably the most important story actually in the Quran. Yeah, it is. It's the most important story in the Quran. Again, it's a story of good versus evil. Yeah, it's talking about a man who came and conquered the Pharaoh of his time. Yeah, he overcame the biggest tyrant. Yeah, the biggest disbeliever of his time. Inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop there. If there's any questions, inshallah, we can take questions people want to ask via Zoom, or people want to ask here, inshallah. So that people have anything they want to ask. They say that there's three types of people that don't learn. One is the one who's too arrogant, and the other one who's too shy. And the common theme between both of them is they don't ask questions. The arrogant one doesn't ask any questions. I know it all anyway. The shy one doesn't ask any questions because he's too shy. So, Bismillah. I'm expecting the floodgates to open after that. Yeah, go on.
You have to wait.
Bismillah.
You know this, the idea of desiring knowledge and leaving the country and getting that knowledge. For some, it's not practical. So I don't think that's really the biggest issue. The biggest issue is the desire.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have that. If you said to me, let's go Yemen and we're going to do 6 hours a day, even hearing that is putting me off because we don't have that jazba for it.
Yeah.
So how do we go from this level to like a basic level, just to increase that, so we can survive here, but like you say, daily we can learn something.
That's an excellent question. So what brother's saying people didn't hear is that he's saying that to go to like the level of complete dedication to the religion is a big step. So how do you go from like zero to at least having the basics? That's a good question. I mean, I think the issue, like you're saying, is creating desire for knowledge. So that really, I mean, it's a long-term game. Now, if you look at traditionally, how was it done? It was done through the Murabbi. Who's the Murabbi? Like you have these great figures, like the charismatic sheikh. That's how people, like, you look at it, how did the Sahaba suddenly become Muslim and everything else? Through the Prophet ﷺ, just being with him, the suhbah of the Rasul ﷺ. So now having the suhbah of his inheritance is what's going to create desire. That's the only way, really. So when you sit with them, I mean, if I'm speaking personally, that's what happened to me. Like, 2002, 2003, I came across an American called Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. 20 years it's been now. And as soon as I heard him, I was like, I want to go to Mauritania right now. But practicality wasn't there for me. And then also my nafs wasn't there for me. So it took me a few years. And then 5 years later, then I enrolled onto like the Makram Madrasa. That's a good start. Something like that, like a weekly, you dedicate 4 or 5 hours a week to knowledge to get your obligatory sciences. Yeah, and then I wanted to go on, then I was going to go to Egypt, and then things kicked off. Then in Syria, things kicked off there. So, it's Qadarullah, then eventually that initial intention that I had manifested. But what was the thing is, I was ready in 2002. The reason I was ready then was just because of that, is that meeting somebody who mashallah was inspirational. So for a lot of people, that's just going to cast into your heart that desire. I remember many years ago with Sheikh Ibrahim, we were doing, we started like a wrestling project. So he brought across these wrestlers, like, really high class wrestlers to teach kids. So like one of the brothers was like, yeah, but these kids are basic. Like, they just need to, it's like learning Alif Ba. It's like getting Sheikh Hamza Yusuf to teach you Alif Ba Ta. You don't need that. You can just get me to teach you Alif Ba Ta. You don't need someone of that level. So, but what he said is, no, you don't understand. It's inspirational. When they look at them and see what this guy's done, he's a silver medalist on the Olympic level. It's like, oh yeah. He gives that. That's what it is. It creates that desire. Yeah. So when you say, like they say, if you're hanging around like in mafioso, if you're hanging around wise guys, you're gonna want to become a wise guy. If you're hanging around scholars, you're gonna want to become a scholar. If you're hanging around footballers, you're gonna become a footballer. Musicians, whatever it might be. It's the nature of the human being. It's entrainment. It comes back. I can't emphasize it. It's just company, really. It's just company. So if you need to be people that then inspire you, and then that, like you're saying, that desire is then created. And that's where it comes down. Once the desire is there, then people do anything. People will do anything for their desire, anything. And we've seen, look at the world we live in now. One of them, Imam al-Junaid, he was walking past a guy who was about to be killed. He's about to be hung in like a highway. It was a highway, like armed robbery nowadays, armed robbery. Mashallah, in them days, they had a justice system that meant that these people dealt with armed robbery. So he's about to be, so he's walking past, and he gives salams to this guy. He says, Assalamu alaikum. Imam al-Junaid was this huge imam. He's got about 1,000 students behind him. They're like, what are you doing? You're giving salams to a criminal. This guy's like lowest of the low. Why are you giving salams to him for? He said, listen, I'm going to teach you something. He said, I have respect for anyone. Because I don't care who they are, because I have respect for anyone who gives their life for what they desire. He's given his life for it. That's what he wanted. He wanted whatever he wanted to rob. The point is, mashallah, from a perspective, it's better than us, isn't it? Because at least he's like, that's what I want. Like they say, the believer should have ashaddu hubban lillah, that the believer should have a stronger love of Allah than these disbelievers do for their dunya. So if they're willing to go out, like I met people in Morocco, non-Muslims, they're out there studying Arabic. Why? So they can become a translator for the UN. They're studying Arabic. SubhanAllah, a friend of mine, this American, I didn't meet him myself. A friend of mine met somebody who was like an apostate who's studying Arabic. He was like, because I didn't want to talk to him after he told me that. I was surprised he didn't kill him. So, it's like, but he's there studying, and we think, this is going to be difficult for me. So the issue is right there. Is what is it? What's the motivation for him? There's something that he loves, and it's got to be like that, isn't it? There's got to be something that stirs that. And there's different things. There's like some, like, that's the most common reason, is by meeting, like this, looking at the novel of the Sheikh, or either looking upon him or him looking upon you, that can be transformative. Other things that can happen is people hear like ayat in the Quran, ayat in the Quran that leads to love, that leads to shauq, desire to be with Allah, and ayat that scares you. Often fear is the best remedy. There, something happens, incidents with you. There's different things that can happen. Inshallah, and that's what creates it. That's where we're at. You're right. Once the desire is there, then it's easy. Like we people are there to sit 4 or 5 hour gatherings, 4 or 5 hour gatherings, they're enjoying every moment of it. They don't want to leave.
It's one of those things. Once you get it, doing the 10 hours is not a problem because you're actually enjoying it.
Yeah, you have to enjoy. And the same thing with our children. This is what we have to instill. Really, like the madrasa system now. That's all they should be trying to do. Even like, the Mauritanians, they're very, very serious scholars. Mauritanians are just unbelievably serious scholars. Like your average Mauritanian student is like, he'd be like the main scholar in any other town in the world. Like they're very, very, but even their teachers now, they're just saying, the senior students, they're just saying with kids, some of them have got love for the religion. That's all that matters. They don't even have to complete the Quran. Us Pakistan are obsessed with, it's got to complete the Quran. So it doesn't matter if it completes the Quran or not. As long as he loves the Quran. Yeah, or she loves, like with my daughter, it's quite funny. My daughter's like 10 now. Alhamdulillah, she's fluent in Arabic. She understands a lot of the Quran. She's been studying Arabic since she was 5, abroad in different places. But she hasn't actually, she hasn't physically completed the Quran. She's memorized 3 or 4 juz. She hasn't physically completed the Quran. So it's like coming back here, and people say, how come she hasn't? So now, just in this Ramadan, she's doing a full khatam in the Ramadan. It's not hard. There's people I know kids, 9 and 10-year-olds in Yemen, every week they complete the Quran. They wake up at 3 in the morning, they recite 3 juz at night. Then between Maghrib and Isha, they're at 1.5. Every single week, they're just doing the whole Quran. Because there's love's there, isn't it? So it's not like, they might get to 10 and they haven't done it. But once they do it, they never leave it. Every single week of that. How many of us complete the Quran? How often do we finish the Quran? And do we even pick it up apart from Ramadan? I'd rather just have it that, okay, you wait till the 10, 11, they do it. And then after that, every single week, they're doing it again and again and again. Yeah, so inshallah. If there's anything, is there anything else? Any other questions? Inshallah.
Another thing I just want to ask you. The main thing what we read in the Quran today is for a sawab. We do not read it to understand it. Even our system, like they just, even our big movies or whatever, like the system is, they do not teach the understanding of the Quran. They just say, when somebody died, read the Quran for sawab. That's what the main thing is. We do not actually teach our from the start, from small children, to understand the Quran.
Yeah.
We're living in a materialistic world. Even our religious leader, they just like do not teach you how you understand the Quran.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah, I mean, this is
Even like in Pakistan culture, this culture, they put that child who's the weakest child, they put him in the madrasa.
Yeah, that's true. That's
If
true.
they're disabled, that's true point. If the child is disabled, they put it in the madrasa.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a book. There's a guy. What's his name? The book's called The Rise of Colleges. It's a very interesting. He talks about how the Muslims develop universities. But in that book, he makes his point because what happened in Syria is when they conquered Syria, they changed the system around. So what used to happen was the most intelligent people used to study Sharia and the Quran and these things. They changed it around. The most intelligent people, they got them to start studying medicine. The second most intelligent people study engineering, and then like the stupid ones, the ones who just said, you go and do Sharia studies. And it should be the other way around, not just because of the sharaf of the deen, but also because Sharia is the hardest thing to understand. The Quran is the hardest thing to understand. Yeah, I mean, this is this is where we're at. It's really the brightest intellects. Like I remember one of our teachers, Sheikh Hamza, he was actually crying when he's making this point. He was saying that there was one young man. Again, he met Sheikh Hamza, he was inspired. This is what it means. He was inspired. 17, 18, he says, he goes to his mom, I'm going to Mauritania right now. I'm going to go and study in the deserts there. That's it. And he goes, Sheikh Hamza, because the mother's upset with Sheikh Hamza saying, look, you ruined his life. He was going to be a great doctor and this, that, and the other. And he literally at the time, this is like old, he's saying, can we not even give at least one? Just give one kid for the ummah. Just give one. Can we not even do that? Yeah, and you're right, it's the same thing. The whole system, that's why we're talking about revival. It's not something is died and we have to bring it back to life. It's not like it's kind of working, we just need to improve it a bit. It's not that. It's not renovation, like you just change the wallpaper on the walls. So you're right from the starting, it's gone, hasn't it? It's like we know the Sahaba, I'm sure you know this, the Sahaba, they used to memorize 10 ayahs of the Quran. They wouldn't go on to the next one until they implemented all of it, understood it and then implemented it. So like imagine if at the time of the Sahaba said, I've memorized Surah Al-Baqarah. That means you bringing all of those rules into your life. Like that'd be subhanallah, how could he have done that? Whereas now, how many people know Baqarah? It doesn't mean anything, does it? Everyone knows Baqarah now, and they just become Baqarah, and they just become cows. That's where we've got to now as a community, and this is the problem. This is the problem, and until that happens, it's just gonna, and we hope. I mean, our journey really. I mean, it is gonna happen. The revival will come, but our journey, our inshallah effort in that is just to be part of that. Yeah, to try to do whatever you can, so then at least when the revival does come, then mashallah, I'll be there on it. Inshallah, I'll be there and we're at the forefront of it. And we did whatever we could within our efforts, inshallah, to try to revive the religion and bring it back. But yeah, I mean, if people have to actually with the Quran, then what about everything else? If you're not even going to bother to understand the Quran, then what else is left in the world to understand? There's nothing else left to understand, because the Quran is the source of all other understanding. So it's sad, yeah. But then at the same time, people will understand secular sciences because they see some type of material benefit. Allah Ta'ala alam, I mean, it does require a massive overhaul of our whole understanding of what education even is. The purpose of education is to gain taqwa. That's the purpose of education. So that can only come through the Quran. You can't get taqwa other than the Quran. I mean, I love to see how people get. No, there is like you can't understand the Prophet without the Quran. You can't enjoy the Prophet's life, implement his life without the Quran. There's nothing there. Yeah, and in the same way, you can't have dhawq, you can't have taste and sweetness of the Quran without love of the Prophet. They're intertwined. You don't separate; they're intertwined. So if people are not going to even begin their journey of understanding the Quran, then religion becomes meaningless. And it's sad, like if we're going to end up going towards where the Christians, that's where we're going. Like I remember years ago, I was at some interfaith thing. They have this Remembrance Day. So I got invited to this interfaith thing to be like the Muslim representative or whatever it was. And it was really, it struck me, there was a Catholic priest there, or a Catholic, Catholic priest, sorry, not a bishop, a priest. And he was talking with this guy from the Church of England. And he goes to him, he goes, how many churches are there in Burnley now? And the guy, he looked a bit like, he was a bit shy. He was like, oh, there aren't any at all. So he goes, how many were there like 30 years ago? He goes, I think he said there was about like 13 or 15. Anyway, the number that he said, I remember at the time, it was the same number as mosques that there were in Eltham at that time. So the number just struck me, that's the same number. And then I thought, imagine in 30 years' time, there's no mosques in Eltham. That's where it's at. That's what's happened to them. And the reasons happen, the same thing, because people there's no understanding. As soon as the understanding goes, then it's just going to wither away. Like my uncle was saying, people come to the mosque, they don't come back again because no one's given them that knowledge to establish it within them. Yeah. So
bring your child here.
Yeah.
You come because dad is scared of the dad.
Yeah.
And when he go back, if you don't want to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, he hasn't been given a reason to come. I mean, what I would recommend, like for example, if you look at a madrasa, like this is one of our teachers, Sheikh Burhan, he's an expert in parenting as well. He's an interesting individual in that sense. He's a primary school teacher. He studied traditionally, but he's also got some modern knowledge as well. He said that if you want to have a madrasa, he said instead of teaching the Quran like was it Ratta style, instead of that, he said do this. He goes, take one ayah of the Quran, just one ayah, and spend 2 weeks on that ayah. I'm going through projects. So he gave an example like you got have you seen the one who rejects his religion? They spent 2 weeks. What does that mean? Why do you like it? The psychology of it? Why do people disbelieve? It goes, and then for that, look at the importance of looking after orphans. Look at the importance of feeding the poor. Like that. 2 weeks. Because if you do that, imagine that same person 10 years later, he walks into Maghrib Salah. Allahu Akbar, Jesus behind the Imam starts reciting that surah. What's going to happen to him? SubhanAllah, his heart's going to come alive now because he's remembered that. But whereas if you've done the Rata style, it doesn't matter how many times they're going to hear it at the mosque and they're going to be thinking about what they've got, what's coming up for iftar. They're not going to be thinking about they're not going to be feeling what's going on in the Quran. They're going to be thinking, roti's getting cold at home.
Well, you say what brother said is right, but we all agree with it. But what I've learned is that it's no good going about that. It's change yourself.
Yeah, mashallah, very good point.
You change yourself.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
You take a step.
Yeah.
I said, if everybody changes and you haven't changed, you die at the grave, you're gonna be losing. So the scholar said to me, he said, yeah, you can moan and groan about this. But it's not in your control.
100%, yeah. Like this is what I think the revival is going to happen for us. It's just going to take part of it.
What you're saying, this is, I learned that from him. This madrasa, this class teaches what brother is saying.
Yes.
Here they're trying to teach that.
MashaAllah, brilliant.
They're trying to teach that. In other places, which I don't know, but they might be trying. But here they try very hard to teach. But what I'm saying that those are children. I'm talking about adults, myself and you and etc. We are saying we don't want to learn. We're going.
Yeah.
I don't want to come back. I'll come back. Look at the mosque here. So we are walking with our feet. Look at the masjid here. How many people want to learn religion? So my teacher said to me, look around you. So everybody's saying, yeah, I listen to khutbah. Khutbah, Khalisa teaches and say, I'm going to come